Hello and welcome to the build guide for the Komodo pistol. This is my pistol, and so some of the stuff I've already done obviously and glued down, so for those parts I'll try and explain best I can what to do there. But we'll start off with the main handle piece here, and I guess we can start with the scales, which is probably the easiest thing. So these scales glue onto the side, but to make sure you locate them correctly, you can see here in the gold through here, there are these small nubs that you print out that you will press into your scale, and so then when you go to place the scale on your main body piece here, which I have in white, they'll go into the holes here in the handle, which will make sure you get those in the right place. But then we can jump on pretty much to the motors straight away. So these use mini brushless motors, which are inside my wheels here, and those motors will sit directly into the features that you'll find here on this handle piece, and the wires will be able to go through these gaps at the back, and are designed to sit in this channel you can see here, which will guide them out over here in that direction. Yep, you screw directly through with all 4 screws that come with the motors when you buy them, and definitely you have to use something like either Loctite or super glue the screws in once you've got them all the way in, because otherwise over time, with this thing spinning over 60,000 RPM, these will come loose and then something's going to go wrong. So once your motors are in, you place your wheels over the top of them. The wheels will slide just directly over top, and you have 2 screws, which you can see here. Those also come when you buy the motors, and screw those directly on top. These are special wheels I got made for myself, but before then you do 3D print the wheels. And I've got some of the ones here that I've used. They've got black on them because you can see it proves I used them, because I've got the rubber kind of wear on there from the darts. I had to print these very slowly, 0.1 layer height, but this proves that you totally can do it, and you can get good quality wheels, and I use these for most of my games with no problems. I only recently got these wheels from a connection with a friend. So put those aside. Yeah. So I've already glued the switch in there, but I'll get onto that. I think the next thing is to go straight to the kind of electronic circuit. Okay, for the sake of this video, I actually chopped up my old circuit that I had. I originally used a Arduino Nano, which then also needed a voltage converter because we use a 12 volt Lipo and a diode and whatnot. It is quite messy, but luckily I was able to chuck that away, because we've got this new beautiful board. This is an Arduino brushless micro made by Airzone, and this is specifically made to make making brushless blasters a heck of a lot easier, by making everything basically just soldered straight to this board, and you don't even have to do any coding or whatnot. So this is what we're going to use. It's also a lot smaller, which makes things easier. So where to begin? So we've got our electronic speed controllers here. So the motors have to go and connect to the electronic speed controllers, because these are what's going to control the brushless motors. With normal DC brush motors you don't need that, but you need logic control if you're using brushless ones. So those then connect through to the XT60 and to your power. But the signal wires from these electronic speed controllers are what's going to go onto our board, as well as the micro switch are going to go straight to the board as well, and then the board will also connect straight to the power without any other kind of voltage divider or anything needed. So that's quite handy. I've made a kind of a high quality circuit diagram to sort of explain that, which I'll show you now. Okay, so let's go on to this. This is the first time I'm soldering this in this format as well. I'll show you this. So with the board, sorry, not the board, the handle here, get these wires out of the way. The way it's designed is that your ESCs are able to slot right in here. I don't know if you can see that. And that's a way of stopping them from moving around and also keeping everything quite compact. So yeah, do this. So they're going to sit in there. Your barrel is hold the shrouds about there. Take the front off. So when you're trying to access the XT60, the front's going to be off. So it's going to be something like this. About there. And so you're going to want your XT60 to be kind of sitting around here. About that long. And that leaves just a bit of room for this board in the middle of the ESC and the XT60. So that's why I've cut the wires down to about this length. I'll just check what that is. So from the ESC to the end of the wire, a bit more. That's about 62 millimeters for that kind of length. Obviously, it's not a hard and fast rule. You can see what works for you. The ESCs do have to be quote unquote flashed before this whole thing is going to be finished, but they need to be powered on from your 12 volt while you're doing that. So we might as well solder up most of the circuit now, and then we'll get to that in the next step. Cool. So I just stripped a bit of the coating off the wires here. So I'll start by getting the two positive power lines from the ESCs, just popping those together, and this is going to go directly into the XT60 connector. But also I'm going to take a small bit of wire, this is going to be the power line to the PCB board that we have. So also somehow get that in. Now remember to put a bit of heat shrink over this now before we connect to the XT60. It's always a pain when you forget. Okay, so I've got that wired up now. You can see got my positive and negative lines and everything. Next step, I will actually just show you how the Lipo is rewired. So this needs a very specific shape of Lipo. It's in the kind of the airsoft shape, which is long and thin. That's how you keep the blaster so thin. And the plug is not an XT60 it comes with, I don't think, so you need to rewire that. But it's helpful to rewire it in a certain way. So this is going to sit in the top here like this, and the barrel is going to be underneath it. There we go. So the way this is going to work is that the power lines are they've got just enough room to come down the side of the barrel like that. And so you can see here that I've soldered this on kind of at a right angle in the way that I've done it, and so doing that helpful. It just means that you don't have to bend more wires around. So also when you're resoldering lipos, you want to be careful. Always only cut one of these wires at a time, I would say, and then solder that onto your XC60, and make sure you've got your plastic heat shrink around that, and then cut the other wire off and solder that on. Always make sure you do this separately, because you don't want to short these, otherwise you'll get a big shock, an electrical shock, and that could be dangerous. So now if you've got your LiPo done and we've got this done, we're going to flash the ESCs. I'm not sure if I'll do a screen recording for this or just talk you through, but I'll explain that process. Okay, so I don't have a screen recorder, so I'm going to walk you through the steps and have some pictures to try and explain this clearly. So first, the ESCs we're using are BL Heli 32s, so we're going to use the BL Heli software in order to flash them. It's the same thing that all the drone people use. So you'll need to go to this link, which is also in the description. And when you do that, you'll come up with a page that looks something like this, which has all the different softwares for what kind of laptop you have, whatnot. I have a Windows, so I'm picking the one at the bottom, but you'll pick the one you need for whichever laptop you have. Now, when you download that and unzip it, there'll be a whole load of stuff you can ignore. And then you just need to open the BL Heli Suite 32, which is this kind of red DX logo. I don't know what DX stands for. Now, when you open that, you'll get a pop-up like this, and this is the software. The first thing you're going to have to do is click on the Make Interfaces tab, which will then bring you to a screen like this. Now, this is because you're going to have an Arduino Nano between the ESCs and your laptop. And so first you need to flash that Arduino Nano with the kind of bootloading software. So you want to make sure that you've got all these tabs selected the same way I do here. So you want Nano ATmega 328. The board you can just leave where it is. You want to select Arduino BL Heli bootloader, and then I think the rest of it just does it automatically. So now you want to plug in your Arduino Nano to your laptop. Don't worry about the ESCs yet. And then at the very bottom, you'll want to select which port it's on. Mine came up as COM6, so I just clicked on that one. So you click on whichever one comes up for you. And now you want to go ahead and click the Arduino BL Heli bootloader button. It asks you if you want to confirm that you want to do that, so hit yes. And then it happens pretty quickly, and it will come up with this one saying that you have successfully flashed your Arduino. So you just hit OK. And then the next step is you want to click on one of the tabs right at the top, which is Select BL Heli 32 Interface. And it's going to come up with a few options. I believe you're going to want to click the one here with the L, which says USB/COM at the end of it, because you're plugging in the Arduino through USB. If that doesn't work, try the 4-way if, but I'm pretty sure it's USB COM. So then we've got all these settings which may overload you, don't worry about it. Basically just copy what you're seeing here in this picture onto your software, so you might have to change some of the values. Most of these things you want to leave. One important thing is the beacon delay over here. If you leave that on, basically if your blast is inactive for a certain amount of time, then it will start beeping, because it's like when you have an aircraft that's crashed and you're trying to find it, it helps you find it. That's kind of annoying in a Nerf game if you're trying to sneak around and then suddenly your sidearm starts beeping. So you just want to chuck that one off. So once you've got those, make sure that those are all the same. You want to, I guess you can leave your USB, your Arduino connected, or you can maybe just disconnect it. Doesn't matter. And you're going to connect your ESCs to your Arduino. So this is really simple, and this is how it goes. My ESCs in the video, I kind of chopped the cables already. But when you get your ESC, it should have the kind of connector that you can plug straight onto your Arduino Nano, and so you want the ground connector to go to this ground that you can see here in the picture, and your signal wire is going to go into D3 on the Arduino Nano here. Remember to then plug your Arduino back into the computer, and also you'll have to power on your ESCs in order to flash them, so you can plug in your Lipo now. So now we'll go look back at the software again, and if you did disconnect it, or just make sure that at the bottom the port is on, well, for me COM6, but choose whichever COM comes up for you, and click connect. Then once that is connected, all you have to do is click the flash BL Heli button, and that should go through a little process and then tell you that it's finished, and you can probably just hit OK. Then just disconnect that ESC and connect up your second one and do exactly the same process, and then they're completely flashed, and that's all you need to do. Cool, so now that you've got your ESCs flashed correctly, we'll finish off the rest of the circuit. So I'm just going to connect the power to the PCB now. The signal wires we're now going to put onto the board. The ground wire from the signal is going to go towards the outside of the board where the signal wires go in, and then the other wire will be towards the inside. You can also look up Blasters by Airzone's website, where he's got a whole page which explains how to use this board. Cool, so I've finished that now. I'll just snip these off to make sure I don't get any shorts, and then I will attach the trigger wires. I've wired up the trigger now onto the PCB, and you want to wire it to the outside pins of the switch. That will have the white way round for when the trigger's in and everything like that. Next we'll just solder the motors onto the ESCs. Either you'll get it right first time or you won't, and the motors will spin the wrong way. If that's the case, then all you have to do is just swap around two of the wires. So don't worry too much, just go for it. Alright, so I've got my ESCs wired up now, as you can see here. I did actually get it backwards, so I had to flip two of the wires on this ESC. Also, I ran into a little problem because it wasn't working. But I realised that's because of where I soldered the signal wires, kind of the black and white wire here. So on the board there's three little spots for the signal wire, even though your ESCs might only have two. And so the ground wire goes towards the outside of the board, and then the other wire will go on the kind of the opposite side, not the middle position. And that's where I had mine, but so I just moved those, and now it works, which is quite exciting. I'll just show you. So there's a safety here. When you first turn it on, it will wait for the trigger to be pressed, or I guess in this case, yeah, pressed. So now when I release it, it will spin. I have a dart here actually. That's cool. Okay. So now there's an onboard potentiometer which I can spin, and I'm not exactly sure what is the right position, but if I spin that, that will make these flywheels ramp up or down from, but basically set them to 0 speed or maximum speed. I don't think that you want to put these on 100% speed from this pot, because then they may spin too fast for the darts past critical speed and they'll slip. so you might have to do a little bit of playing around with that with a chronograph as well to see what speed you're getting. But once you set that on the max speed to hit around 130 FPS, then you don't have to mess with it again. So I will leave that where it is and we'll carry on with the rest of the build. So now we're going to take the other handle piece and your trigger, and we're going to insert that. So the trigger normally wants to sit like this, but you have to just slot it through this gap here. So we're going to pop it through like that, and then at this point you want to very carefully kind of bend it through, and the plastic will bend slightly, but that's okay. Just try and bend it as little as possible and wiggle it. Ah, there we go. Now it's in. On this side you can see it's moving. So that's all good. And then we also have to put in two other pieces. I'll put this one in first. So this is the top of your pusher. So we'll put that on the light, that's better. Pop that in the top rail here, and that slides forwards and backwards. Now for all of these areas we have something sliding, so like in here or on here, we want to apply some lubrication. I've found that yes, I guess silicone lubrication works as well, but also I've got this dry lubrication PTFE spray, which is pretty good. Got that from the bike store, so that also works. Here we have our magazine kind of catch knob, and here we'll take the compression spring and we'll just fit that in, or not. This one does like to fly out if you let it, so you've got to be careful with this one. Again, with this you want to make sure that you've if you need to sand that, just make sure that it's moving nicely and there's no friction. Well, not a lot of friction in there. And then we can place this on here. I'm just moving the pusher up slightly, because until this is shut it kind of falls down and doesn't quite sit in position. There's also the magazine catch. Oh, there we go. Now this is shut, everything's in the proper position. Back in the slide. I've got a magazine catch here. I'll just put in the screws. Oh yeah, so for this we're using the the medium size 10mm screws. We have 3 of them. So next we'll take the other outside pieces, the outer panels I guess, of the main body. Oh yeah, I'll explain the rest of the pusher. So this is your left kind of outer panel piece. If you turn that over, that's where the pusher is going to go. And this is your pusher piece. Now you can see there's a hole here, and what you're going to do is you're going to take your tension spring, and you actually, what I did is I pulled the end loop open slightly with some pliers, just so that I could get it in here, and then squished it down shut again. So now it's not going anywhere. This you want to make sure is a very smooth print on the top, because again this is where everything's sliding and you want to put some lubrication on it. There's a central nub here where, oh no, that's probably actually not the best way to do it. The first thing you want to do is put the screw in here that's holding the other end of the tension spring. I have here it is. So this is a really tiny screw. If you have anything tiny that you think will fit in, you can use that. And just at the end of here, where there's this sort of shape, which is the path that the spring takes, there's a little hole, and you can just start to screw that in. Now only screw it in enough so that it comes up to the height of this feature here, because when we put this panel on, we're then going to screw in all the way. But this is just enough so that you can hook the return spring on it. So I'm going to try and hook it in, kind of have to hold it down, and then put the pusher on its little peg. There we go, so you see the pusher's on its peg, the spring is within its curved pathway, and it oh crap, it may want to fling out, which this one just did. So yeah, this can be a little bit of a pain, this point. There we go. So now we're going to push this on. We want to make sure that your pusher is all the way back, your trigger is all the way forwards, and you might have to wiggle these slightly just so they slide into place when you put this on. Okay, the pusher's in place, but the trigger is sort of overlapping with the lever. So I'm just gonna try and move that slightly. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so you can feel that's under the spring now. And if we're able to look down here, can we see that? Should be able to see that moving now. Now, what we're going to do is, again, this screw here that's holding the spring in, now we can screw that all the way in, and that will go into the white handle section. That just secures that in place. And then on the other side, it's a lot easier. You just want to make sure that these wires are flat in the channel, because that's their kind of guide. And then you can take this piece and you just pop it over top. Oh, I forgot to mention, you might see above the scale there's a little gap there, and there is one on the other side, and that's also something to try and help locate this and stop it from sliding around. There we go. So now we can put in 3 screws into that to hold it in place. Okay, so now we're going to use one of the very tiny screws for the end piece here, and then we're going to use our 2 very long screws for these holes. Now with these ones here, you don't want to go crazy, but you do need to probably apply a bit of firm pressure and just take it slow. Okay, that was slightly easier for me because I've already cut a thread into the plastic parts, because I've done that a few times now. But you might have to kind of cut that thread as you go in. Alright, so those pieces. What's next? So next is the barrel and the shroud and all that business. So I'll start with this. You're gonna have your kind of standard Nerf barrel, so you can take that out of any old N-Strike blaster, or I mean, if you don't have that, you Worker sells kind of aftermarket barrels. Is basically the same as this. You're going to take this piece here, and this piece helps to guide the darts from the concave wheels right into the barrel, and that literally just slots on. You can put some super glue in if you want. I have not needed to, but you can. And then you have this other piece, which is pretty much just a loop. The point of this is you'll slide this over the barrel. This you'll want to glue in place when you get it in the right place, but the point of this is that when the front piece goes on, this acts kind of like as a stop, so that it can't go any further, and it just it will stop the barrel from coming forwards out of the blaster. As you can imagine, if you didn't have this, well, that is a little tight on this one, but if you didn't have this, the whole thing could just slot really far forwards in the middle of play or something, which would be bad. Now, you might cut your barrel a bit longer or shorter, so I don't exactly want to tell you where to glue this, but I would say that don't glue it yet, just we'll put the blaster together and we'll find out where that sits, and then you can glue it in at that point. That's roughly correct. Okay, now when we do put this shroud on, this is going to slide over. We have these tabs here which are designed to try and help keep this panel down and tight to the blaster, and also we have 2 screw posts on each side, so well, a post I guess, a hole here and a hole here. Mine is slightly snapped off because I did some abusive testing with my own model to make sure that the design was good enough for all of you people, so that's why it's missing, but we'll just ignore that for now because your file will have it there. Okay, so first we want to place our ESCs securely in the blaster, in the place where they're meant to go, which is in these kind of slots either side of the switch. So I'll probably be clearer to see once I've done it. But I'll pop that in there. Just be careful and move the wires around softly so you don't break the solder you've done. There we go. It's not terrible, they don't have to be millimeter precision. I just put a bit of blue tack in there just so they won't move around while I was getting the rest of the blaster together. Okay. So there we go, we can see that they're sitting in their slots now. 3 of the wires do have to cross across here to the other ESC, so you just want to make sure that when you put your barrel in, that they are below the barrel and they're not getting crushed in any way. There is room there if you put them in properly. So I'll just do that now. Yeah, and that's fine. So I've got that past there, and the wires aren't going to be damaged at all. So now I will try and place the rest of the shroud on. So we're just going to feed this through, nothing special there. Make sure you keep the barrel in place and it doesn't wobble out. And just watch to make sure that nothing's getting pinched. Oh, oops. yeah, especially on this side where the ESC wires are coming out, there's a kind of a little cutout in this shroud piece, and just make sure that they are going in there. That's good. Oh, oops. You see I wedged the board in the wrong place. Come on, board. Oh yeah. There's a bit of a step inside the shroud, so you do just have to make sure that it can get past that point. Again, making sure my ESC wires are not caught. Ah, there we go. It's shut and lovely. Lots of room there for that. Okay. So now we can secure this with the 2 screws on each side. Okay, so these are the 4 tiny screws again. Just a little notice here, because I forgot to say it in the video, but it's probably more advised to take the orange shroud off and screw the thread into the white pieces in the handle beforehand. Just the thread's already there, and you can maybe support it from underneath if they're bending. So then, yeah, screw the screws in, unscrew them so the thread's there, and then put the shroud back on and continue in screwing the 4 small screws. Again, the first time you do this, you want to make sure that you're careful, because you may need to be cutting those threads as you screw it in. There you go. And the part of the white handle on the inside that this is screwing into is more of a thin plate, so you don't really want to just press into it, because you might just bend it down. You want to make sure that the screw actually is screwing into it, and so allow that screwing motion to kind of pull that white plate up against the inside of the orange piece here. Turn that over. There we go. That's not going anywhere. Now we can first, yeah, we'll make sure we get this this white ring in the correct place. So the way this comes on is it has got a little bit of a rail in here just at the end, so you can bring it in part way and slide it all the way in. You do have to make sure that you get the barrel lined up so that bit can come through. Ooh, there we go. And then you can slide the rest of it on. Just make sure that the little feature there doesn't get caught. Sometimes that gets caught. Cool. And now that should have pushed the white ring to the correct position. So now I'll take this back off again. Mine's a little tight. If it's this tight, you might want to give it a little sand so it's easier to get off. Okay. So now this white ring we know is in the correct position. So if you wanted to give it a little dab of super glue, you could do that now. Now we can take our Lipo battery and just wiggle it in the front. The barrel might move down slightly, that's fine. and make sure you've pressed that in all the way. I'll see if I can show you. So you can see that does go in a little ways there, and that's mainly so you have room to tuck the balance leads in the front there when you close it. So we'll bring this down the side here. We should be able to plug it in. Nice. Take this. Again, I've got to line up the barrel. It's always fun. Ah, there we go. That is shut. Then you will take your 3D printed pin and shove that through there to close it. I haven't got one at the moment because I've just been using an old metal pin that I found lying around. So I'll just pop that in for now. And might just have to wiggle it so that you don't catch the balance leads which are in there. But okay, come on. There we go. Got that. So that's now locked in place, but if you needed to get to the Lipo quickly, pull a pin out and slip the front off. The last thing I actually forgot to do was to put in the little tab that you hit for the mag release. So we have these two pieces, and they are a friction fit into the side here, and they should be a good press. I think it's obvious, but just to make sure you get it right, this is what this one looks like. It goes on this side. Has a little cutout to avoid the screw, and it kind of matches the profile of the blaster there, so it's kind of how you know you've got it on the right side. And this one will shove in this side, so that should be a bit of a push fit, and make sure you've got them right up as much as possible. And now that should be able to move back. Brilliant. And well, we've plugged the Lipo battery in, so this thing's ready to go. That doesn't sound very powerful because I've got the potentiometer not very high, but it's also very late at night, so it's probably a good thing. Yeah, I'll get a magazine and see if I can show you the shooting. Okay, so I've got a magazine. Pop it in. Oh, lovely mag release. I'll just show you that quickly. Gravity drop. Just lift the thumb up and back, and that releases it. Ah, workers. They really need to up their glue game, don't they? Oh yeah, 8.5 in. So there you go. That is the build guide for the Komodo pistol. I hope you enjoy it. I've loved using this so much. We've used this at some of our big annual high FPS events, and it's just so handy to be able to pull out a really sleek small sidearm when I need to, but it still hits pretty good FPS when I'm inside buildings. But frankly, I've also used this outside for humans versus zombies as well. Really good for that kind of thing as well. Alright, so thanks for following that really long build guide. I realised that was kind of long, but I wanted to go through everything in depth so that there's less questions directed at me. But I'm very happy to answer questions. If you need anything, you can contact me through my Facebook page, Atch Attachments. And also, if you want to purchase the files for this blaster, you can do that on my new website, which is www.atchattachments.co.uk.